Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So, today I want to talk about Charlotte Katakuri's Mochi transformation or Mochi augmentation. So we still haven't seen the Katakuri versus Luffy fight yet. We've just gotten teasers. But I believe that Oda is slowly implementing the various themes in which he wants to address with the fight. And perhaps the most obvious of these so far is the fact that Luffy and Katakuri's Devil Fruits are extremely similar, or even if they're not similar, Katakuri can do the same kind of things with his fruit that Luffy does with his. But the thing is that their fruits aren't exactly the same, so Katakuri takes the ideas behind some of Luffy's attacks and then, I guess, mochifies it. This is a simple rundown of what we've seen so far. Luffy attempted to use Gear Second. Now, using Mochi, Katakuri was unable to emulate anything really resembling what Luffy does in order to create Gear Second. But Katakuri straight up didn't need to do anything because without, pumping his blood, he was already stronger and faster than Luffy. And then so they also used the Gatling attack. And so both Mochi and Rubber is stretchy, but Katakuri one-upped Luffy by not only having stretchy arms which he could swing quickly, but making more of them, more Mochi limbs. And we actually see him do this again later with essentially Luffy's stamp technique, but obviously Katakuri is the one using it and has his own name for it. And then they also show us a little bit of Gear Third. And so what Luffy does in Gear Third is he blows into his bones to increase its size, but Mochi has an advantage over Luffy because Katakuri seems to be able to create more of himself. He can create more Mochi. So the real idea behind Gear Third is just to make a gigantic fist. Gigantic fist equals more damage. And Katakuri can also do this the same but better. This is exactly what Katakuri told Luffy. I told you, in terms of our powers, there's nothing you can do that I can't. Speed, power, all of it, you are inferior. Like Rubber would ever lose to Mochi. And so from this line alone and everything that set it up, it seems pretty obvious to me that aside from this fight being important for Luffy to reconvene with his friends, potentially defeat a member of the Big Mom Pirates, it's also important for Luffy to either learn that his Devil Fruit right now isn't enough so that he can improve it, or two, that it is strong enough and Katakuri just doesn't know. This became a fight about Devil Fruit abilities, and Oda is now forcing Luffy to protect the honor of the Gomu Gomu fruit. But anyway, you can tell that it's very important for Katakuri, or at least he seems motivated, to pretty much make the Luffy's fruit and Luffy himself look bad by not only defeating him, but defeating him with his own attacks, but just made better. And so, I mean, everyone who's reading One Piece right now should expect it's coming. Gear Fourth is coming. It's right now Luffy's strongest technique, and Oda has purposefully not let Luffy go Gear Fourth yet. We presume to set up what should be a very exciting fight, or at least interesting. Gear Fourth is such an absurd power-up for Luffy. We can see it when he fights Doflamingo. Luffy was never going to defeat Doflamingo with Gear Second and Gear Third. Doflamingo was on another level. But then Luffy went Gear Fourth, and Doflamingo became fodder. Katakuri is certainly sitting high and mighty at the moment, but I don't think that he can expect that Luffy would have such a trick to, at the very least, close the vast distance between himself and Luffy. And so it's at this point that many people ask this question. If Katakuri is going out of his way to try and prove to Luffy that the Mochi is the superior fruit to Rubber, will Katakuri, just like he has been doing previously, produce his own version, his Mochi version of Gear Fourth? And based on what we have seen, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't if he can. And based on, again, what I can see, I don't see why he couldn't. The scene that we saw at the very end of the last chapter of One Piece was honestly pretty telling, and it adds up with all the other things that we've seen Katakuri do. Katakuri is entirely made of Mochi. Very similar, I would say, to Luffy being entirely made of Rubber. But what's awesome about Mochi as compared to Rubber is actually a solid. It's a hard substance that can just stretch. But mochi is not a hard subject. It can actually break apart, and it can reform together. You can shape it in any way that you like. It's very malleable, I would suppose, would be a good word to describe it. And so because of this, Katakuri can literally do pretty much anything that he likes to his body. We see this when Katakuri emulates Gear 3. He doesn't need a blow into his arm. Maybe there's air going into his arm. We don't know. There could be some odd explanation. But the point is that all he needs is his body to essentially change its shape, and you have the mochi equivalent of Gear 3. With all of the benefits that Luffy gets from himself going into Gear 3. So if you look at Gear 4 on the surface, Luffy is merely blowing into his muscles. He's essentially making his muscles very large, and he makes himself buff. We're just going to call it like we see it. Luffy becomes incredibly buff, albeit a bit more round than I think that we were used to seeing. That being said, Katakuri would see this, and so when he emulates the Gatling gun, he creates more arms, right? And then just swings them really fast. When he emulates Gear 3, it's like, okay, I'll make my arm big as well. And if he sees Gear 4, I think Katakuri might try and improve his fruit superior by making himself stronger and faster by increasing his mochi muscle mass. Oda very much loves to reuse concepts. He does a great job of layering these within the story. He introduces something at the beginning of the arc, and then it comes back into play in a different form later on in the arc. And so earlier we learned that Big Mom essentially desires for her children to all sit at the table at the same height. That she wishes for Caesar to create this drug or the science to make her children larger. And so Katakuri is probably one of Big Mom's favorite children, maybe the strongest child that she has, and I'm wondering if Oda might give him the power of giantification. And so the reason that I'm speculating this is because I think that thematically it makes a lot of sense with what we were given earlier in Whole Cake Island about what Big Mom wants her children to be able to do. Katakuri being the strongest, I think that this makes a lot of sense. But I wouldn't speculate it unless I thought, 1, the details in this story made it possible, and 2, the details in the story leads me to believe that it might actually happen, and I think both of these are being fulfilled currently. If we're talking about the mochi fruit, it seems as though Katakuri can literally do anything he wants with his body. That when he creates a gigantic arm, what stops him from making his entire body gigantic? I don't see any reason why he couldn't if he wanted to. And as soon as Katakuri sees Luffy go Gear 4, I think that he would want to. What is Gear 4? Luffy is larger, he's stronger, he's buffer. Katakuri wants to make a point that whatever Luffy can do with his fruit, Katakuri can do better. So then Katakuri could become bigger and more buff, stronger. Maybe even this also makes him faster. On every level, I really think that this theory makes a ton of sense. Katakuri's colossal transformation. And if I were to speculate, if there is any limit to what the mochi fruit can do, I would say that based on Big Mom's character, Katakuri might have practiced becoming large enough to be at least the size of Big Mom. If only to entertain Big Mom's fantasy of being able to look her children in the eye. So with this being speculated, right, that Katakuri is going to see Luffy's Gear 4 and do his own version of it, which might be better than it in many ways. So am I saying that Luffy stands no chance against Katakuri, or he has to pull out Gear 5, something that's different in order to potentially even compete with Katakuri? And no, I want to stick with what I've been saying for the last couple weeks. Specifically, I think I said in a review around 2 to 3 chapters ago. When it comes to shonen logic, bigger equals stronger. Now, you can take a bigger person and he can be weaker than a smaller person, but if you take one person and make him bigger, they always get stronger, period. And so when Luffy goes Gear 4 and he blows air into his muscles, just like when he blows air into his bones to create the giant fist, he himself would get stronger, maybe even faster, naturally. And so when Katakuri gets bigger, if he can actually do that with his mochi, make his muscles bigger, he can possibly get stronger and faster. But that isn't what makes Gear 4 so special. The drastic power that we can see with Gear 4 directly relates to the fact that Luffy is made out of rubber. He utilizes the inherent capabilities of his Devil Fruit to what appears to me to its maximal possible degree. If you think that rubber is special because it is rubbery, because it is bouncy, it is stretchy, then Gear 4th takes the strength of Luffy's fruit and amplifies it. So when Luffy coats his body in Haki, and you see him bounce around when he goes in Tank Man because Haki is on his feet, this is because Luffy's feet were coated with Haki and the air in his muscles is just incredibly bouncy. And Doflamingo explains it to us as the reason why Luffy's punches are so powerful, the increased elasticity. And so the reason that I bring this all up, and it goes back to sort of the impression I'm getting about how Oda is setting up this fight, about it being about Devil Fruits and how Katakuri's Devil Fruit is stronger than Luffy's, how everything Luffy can do with his Devil Fruit, Katakuri can do as well, but do it better. But in this case, Katakuri is not made out of rubber, so he might see Gear 4th as a base power and speed increase by becoming larger, but the strength of Gear 4th goes much further than that, and something that Katakuri made out of Mochi cannot emulate. I really think that if there's any hope to be had in Luffy possibly defeating Katakuri, you have to believe in Gear 4th and Katakuri being able to emulate it in some respects, but not in full. I mean, we've already seen it already, right? Anything Luffy does, any powers or abilities that sort of relate to moving or size or changing size or whatever, Katakuri can copy that. But Katakuri could not copy Gear 2nd, he just didn't need to. So I do still have some hope, even if Katakuri hasn't even shown off a portion of what he is capable of. But anyway, guys, that's all I really wanted to say today. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you like the video. Dislike the video if you dislike the video. Subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.